I sit down and I do this most important meeting of my life, just sitting in a puddle of my own piss. I had like, 4 chords and the truth, and I had this punk rock mentality. It doesn't kill you. It's not trying to kill you. It's just giving you all the tools to kill yourself. I don't know what I'm saying. I can't concentrate and do this at the same time. Oh my God. I found a tougher industry.
Pottery?
Yeah, the pottery industry. I thought the music industry was tough. The pottery industry is way harder.
What's up, Pottery people? Welcome to Center Yourself, the show where creativity meets vulnerability as we share the stories that help shape us. I'm your host, Nate Winter. If you like this conversation ahead, please like, share, and subscribe to help grow the seed of an idea into something meaningful together. Join us as we slow down, get our hands dirty, and discover what it really takes to help us find center within ourselves. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Shake my hand. Give me a little clay shake. For the people at home, give me just a quick little couple sentences of who is Dave Gutter.
Dave Gutter is a musician, songwriter, and producer from Maine who has been scrapping his way through the music industry and treading water for as many years as he possibly can. Yeah, that's basically it.
Wonderful. So we've been friends for a while now, and I actually have gone through a phase of literally looking up to you when I went to see you perform at like the State Theater, which is an iconic venue here in Maine, to actually growing to become friends with you and working on many projects since then. So it's a great privilege to have you here with me today. And I get the honor of kind of trading roles where you've been sort of mentor to student to me, and now we get to reverse roles here. And I'm going to teach you ceramics while having a conversation.
It's cool. This reminds me of actually our symbolism of our friendship. Because when I first met you, you were kind of like just this blob of like, is this dirt? What is this? Mm-hmm. And then it turned into something beautiful.
Well, not yet. We'll see what happens. I wanted to just get into briefly the philosophy of why I've called this show Center Yourself. Is one of the things that my professor, Scott Fuller, who's actually going to be one of the guests on this show, is that in order to center the clay, you must center yourself. And I'm sure that you can maybe relate to that with regards to songwriting and producing, that if you go into a studio and you're not in the right frame of mind, you might not make as good of art as maybe if you came into it with a more level head, or sometimes maybe the lack of a level head could lead to some great art as well. But that's the whole nature of this, and have fun. And I give you your first lesson. This is your first time on a pottery wheel. So let's kind of have some fun and see where it goes.
Great.
All right.
I love it.
So I first heard of Dave Gutter through one of probably your most notable projects that got you off the ground, which was Rustic Overtones, which is one of the most recognizable band names out of Maine. And I actually saw you perform at a New Year's show, probably around 2015, give or take, when you performed with Soul Live. One of those band members being Eric Krasno, which is going to be a name that'll come up later on in this conversation. But can you give me a little bit of a background of Rustic Overtones and how, being a breakout band from the state of Maine in the 90s, and sort of how that led to your deal with Arista Records and Clive Davis?
Yeah. Well, we were a band when I was in junior high school. I think we got the name Rustic Overtones maybe when we were freshmen or sophomores in high school. At that point, we had played mostly parties that my parents or other band members' parents had hired us for, and they didn't want the punk rock music we were playing, so we'd play like oldies songs, but we'd play them like we were the Clash, or the Ramones or something. So our set in the early years was very much kind of oldies with an edge, and that's kind of how we got the name Rustic Overtones, because it was like something old but something new, But we started that.
When did the band form? Like mid 90s approximately?
Yeah, about mid 90s. And we used to make cassettes and sell them out of our cars at school, out of our locker.
What's a cassette for the kids?
It's an early form of music. What do you call it?
A device.
Cassette player, tape. But yeah, the band started, and we basically got a manager that was a owner of a club that we played at a lot. I want to, get you guys, I want to manage you guys, get you guys a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And he cheated our way to the top.
How so?
I found out years later that, you know, I'm over here hating on these internet kids trying to fake it till they make it. And then I find out that, you know, our street teams were just basically people that were hired to request our songs on the radio and buy up our CDs for SoundScan. And he would set up a showcase in New York, and he would hire a bunch of actors and van a bunch of people from Portland down to the show. So it would appear as though we were like very, very popular. So with this information, you know, you tend to be like really insecure about, you know, imposter syndrome, because you're like, this guy got me here by hook or crook. Now I need to prove myself. So that was kind of how we got from like being a local band to being national or even internationally known, was basically trying to cheat the system.
Were you touring nationally and internationally before you had your first major record deal with Arista?
Yeah, and touring at that time was a lot different because people would go to venues that had live music. That's how you'd find out about a band. It's not like you would already know of this band, or you'd be able to research them on the internet, or even most times maybe they wouldn't even have an album or whatever. So, you know, you'd find out about a band by going to you're so fast, by going to a show at, you know, a venue you trust that they have cool music, and maybe you know the opener, the headliner, or whatever, and you discover bands that way. So we would just set up shop in the corner of a restaurant, because if you're on tour and you know, everyone knows that a Sunday or Monday night off means that you're spending money. So we would rather like make money, or at least be positioned so that we maybe could make money. So we would play 7 days a week wherever we could. That's not really the paradigm now that you use to break bands or even to get your music out there. But back then, it worked. Playing everywhere. I mean, one day we'd be opening for somebody at like a 30,000 seat stadium, and then we'd be playing a house party.
In some ways, some things haven't changed, though.
No, that is the nature of the music industry.
Can you tell me about being sort of this rebellious, I guess, punk attitude local band from Maine to signing your first major deal with Clive Davis of Arista, and what that was like for you, the expectations that you may have had with that, and how what actually happened in reality deviated from your expectations?
Well, I wasn't about all that stuff, because I grew up on punk rock music. I was more about the integrity of it. So like, if we were going to be big, to me at that time, and even now, I don't really listen to the radio much now, but at that time you listen to the radio and there'd be like that one song. Be like that one song on the radio, like, oh, this is actually a good song. This is not pop schlock. This is a good song. So my goal was always to be that one song. If I had to be in the mainstream and I had to be popular, I wanted to be, you know, the outlier that was the song that had some conviction and maybe was about something or made you feel something. So that's a very bad mentality to go into the music industry with, when you're looking at people like Clive Davis and you're trying to talk to them about not making money, but about, you know, what music is and what music should be and how important it is to people. Those conversations fell on deaf ears.
Were you excited, and was your band excited about the prospects of being sort of big hot shots out of little old Maine?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I'd say now, we're kind of back at a place where owning your own stuff and being DIY is cool. But when we were a young band, it was like, oh, cool, you're in a band, are you signed? And that was like pretty much the test, whether you were a real band or you're just jamming in your friend's garage. So everyone wanted to be signed.
Just sort of for the sex appeal of being signed to a major label?
Yeah, just for the legitimacy of it. And then you get in there and you kind of realize that, you know, it's a lot about making money on formulas that already work. And
rinse and repeat.
yeah, besides for, short of doing a cover, I mean, they would have you, okay, whoever's selling this month, we're going to get that producer to work on your album, and maybe you'll sound like them, or we'll get that, whoever. We never had songwriters. We were always the songwriters for our own stuff, so I was always grateful for that. But, they definitely, I didn't like the feeling that they were trying to fit us into a hole, or try to fit us into a really friendly package. I've always liked music that kind of pushes the limits in any way, or at the very least is original.
Right, because I think with Rustic Overtones, when I saw the first performance that I saw of you guys, it was like really hard to even identify. If somebody asked me what genre is Rustic Overtones, it's super hard to kind of pinpoint that, because you had anywhere from as seemingly obscure as like Brazilian dance music with rock, with psychedelic music and punk. And I think that in some ways that's interesting artistically, but from an industry standpoint, like, what do you call that? How do you package that? And was that maybe something that became a struggle when you were signed to a major label?
Well, yeah, it was definitely a struggle. And it's even become more of a struggle now because more than ever, you're kind of defined by the genre or the category you can fall in, so that people can place you in the coffee shop playlist or the indie rock playlist. And we were always discovering music, and the same went for our creations. So like, in the van, you got 10 guys on tour splitting an aux cable. And so you have one guy who's like, dude, you guys don't listen to gospel music? Check out this. And we would listen to a bunch of cool gospel music. And then someone else would be like, dude, punk rock is where it's at. We got to listen to this stuff. And so everyone was kind of like trying to accept everyone else's aux chord stuff. And that translated to the practice space when people would come up with ideas. We tried to fit in as many of the ideas and influences, at least into a record, if not a song. But the exploration of music, kind of digesting a style and then being like, cool, we did that. Let's move on. If we were going to do a reggae song, we would try to make it as authentic, and we would research reggae as much as we could. Or if we were going to do a Brazilian song, or we're going to do a metal song, whatever, we would try to honor those genres the best we could while being tourists, and
Sure. You had an album release party for your most recent album, which is actually if I'm not mistaken, your debut solo Dave Gutter full-length album called The Music Industry is Trying to Kill Me.
yes.
And we'll get into that in a moment, but one thing that I wanted to reflect on is when you shared a story about your very first dinner party meetup with Clive Davis, and I heard you were so nervous you pissed your pants.
No, that is not true.
Oh,
That's
okay.
not the way the story goes. I
okay.
mean, I'll tell you the story.
Okay.
So
I must have misunderstood.
I might have to stop the wheel because, I'm getting kind of like distracted here, doing two things at once.
That thing's gonna go pretty soon, man. You're working it too hard.
What? What are you
You know how
talking
sometimes,
about?
like when you're writing a song, you got to know when to stop. You might be at that point with that
Look
piece.
at yours.
All right, tell me what happened.
All right, so we have this big dinner where we're signing. It wasn't the dinner with Clive Davis, but there was all the big people from the label were there. We're meeting him for the first time. Super nervous. We've never been on a major label before. We'd never been offered $1 million for our music before. So this is all very important. So we had this dinner at a nice restaurant in San Francisco. And so I'm like, generally when we have these kind of things, the band kind of splits up and we all kind of do our own thing. We meet at the spot we're supposed to be at, Oh crap, I'm losing it. So I get there early because I have to poop. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be pooping when these guys need to talk to me. So I go into the bathroom, and I'm going to the bathroom. It's successful. I've made the right choices. I've gone to the bathroom before my important meeting. But what I didn't notice is, have you ever made a toilet bowl? I would love to have an artisanal toilet at home. That would be really special. So I was in the bathroom, And this particular toilet, if I were to make one, I would not make it in this design. There's the seat that goes down, and then between the seat and the bowl is this gap. And I didn't see this gap. And though, my number 2 was going very successful, I was going, I don't know about everyone. Do girls number 2 and number 1 at the same time like guys do? I don't know. But
I think it's pretty standard procedure.
Is it? Well, so I was number 1ing while I was number 2ing, but I was number 1ing through this little crack
You
in
hate
the
to
toilet.
see that.
And I didn't know, but I was just peeing my whole load of pee right into my pants that are around my ankles. So
you inadvertently pissed your pants.
yeah, I didn't piss, but I was in the place where you're supposed to pee. I went to the right place. I was doing the right things. It just takes one little mess up, which I think we're going to find here with this bowl, is all it takes, and things can go awry. So I'm there, and I have to go out into this restaurant.
Was
with
it
my
in any way, could you hide it in any?
Nope, back of my pants completely soaked in pee.
Okay.
And so I have to walk out this restaurant, and I have to be constantly making my butt away from anyone, So I'm like just moving myself as I'm walking through, and I sit down and I do this most important meeting of my life, just sitting in a puddle of my own piss. And I felt like it was very telling or symbolic somehow of like what the music industry would be treating me like over the next little while.
As far as like, you tend to be somebody that explores topics like self-deprecation
Right.
in your writing. And do you think that moments like that kind of are inspiring in a way, even though it's like humbling and, unfortunate in the time being, but has those moments kind of inspired your writing process?
Well, yeah, it was the biggest moment of my life, and it wasn't what I had expected. It wasn't what I had pictured it to be like. So, yeah, expecting the unexpected and be able to roll with the punches is kind of the thing in the music industry, and also the fact that I'd be able to have such a big moment happening at the same time as something really humiliating. I felt, that it was important for me to have those lessons to keep grounded in who I was. Like you feel like you've been on the road. You feel like you're not a human sometimes when you're doing this stuff.
How long did it take you to laugh at that?
It didn't take long. It didn't take long.
Were your bandmates aware, like during, or did it?
They knew right after.
Okay, yeah.
There's been a bunch of events over the years with the toilet with all of us when you're on the road. And you're eating out of a gas station at 2 a.m.
100%.
You're not going to have the digestive prowess of maybe a person eating salads all the time and fruit and vitamins. This is not going well. I just broke it.
Yep, good. Rip it off.
And the gas pedal's stuck on.
Okay, so this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna scrape that piece off, like using your hands. Go ahead and just kind of leave that in your splash pan. Yep.
You guys see this?
Scrape the bottom, kind of like karate chop it from the sides here, and scrape it right off while the wheel's spinning. It's gonna be easier for you. Yep, or that. Sure, sounds good. So famously, your major record deal fell apart, much like this piece that you were just making.
Yes, it did.
Pretty symbolic. Can you talk to me about what led to that deal not working and how you ended up going independent after that experience?
Well, it really, a lot of people don't know the details behind this. That we've talked about it a lot, but we haven't really touched upon the big merger that had happened at Arista. That was the label that we were on, and Clive Davis was at Arista, and he was our big advocate. It wasn't like an A&R discovered us and signed us, like Clive Davis.
The man himself was interested.
He discovered us and signed us. So he was very invested, and we were part of a new rock division of Arista. They had primarily done R&B and hip hop and pop music, but they hadn't really succeeded at rock. So we were part of that. And when the merger happened, there were a lot of shakeups at the industry. And one of those was that there was a little caveat in Clive Davis's contract that said, oh, after a certain age, you can't be the president of this label.
Go ahead and stop the wheel. Oh, that works too. You actually crushed that. Keep going.
Hell yeah.
Apply a downward pressure first. There you go. You're on it.
So I think like Seagram's or something. I was always confused by this. I'm like, you mean like the soda company? But they had something to do with a bunch of these like EMI mergers, all the companies that were kind of under the EMI banner. So what happened was we no longer really had an advocate at the label. They were like, L.A. Reid came in and he was like, well, we like you guys, but we're just going to kind of leave you sitting here for a while because we don't know what we're doing in the rock department. And then we had a horrible time at L.A. Reid. We were very, very
were you shelved,
angry.
quote unquote?
Well, yeah, we were shelved. And they were trying to make, like, he sent us a mix. L.A. Reid sent us a mix, and this is back in snail mail. So he's not emailing this. He's just mailing this mix to us. What do you think? And, replaced our drums with drum machines, which is cool. We're not trying to live in the past.
Well, you guys had one of the most badass horn sections, and they were replacing it with synthesizers.
Right.
Yeah.
So we lit the physical copy of this mix, this compact disc. We lit it on fire. We all stood in a circle and we peed on it and filmed it, and we sent it back to L.A. Reid.
Yeah. How'd that work?
I mean, this was, the rustic stuff. It was always a comedy of errors, and I believe, I would like to apologize to the other guys. I believe it was pretty much me that was doing all this stuff.
It's not surprising.
You get up to bat, and
that's the most
bases
punk rock
are loaded,
shit.
And you get they lob the ball at you, and you just throw the bat and take off your clothes and run off the field. There were like things like that, but the journey and kind of the things I learned, I don't think that I would want myself or the music that I was making at that time to be what defined me. I was still growing, and so I was fine not being a household name at that point. I feel like I kind of dodged a bullet when they're talking about, there's all these bands that are comparing us to, or not comparing us to, but trying to like lump us in with, like Matchbox 20 was a big one.
You guys sound just like them. What are you talking about?
I had to fight off Matchbox 20 so many times to do collaborations in the studio, to do shows, to do collaborations on the Santana album. I was like, I am not working with these guys. These guys are trash. I firmly believe it in my heart. And I felt rectified last year. Did you see the Barbie movie?
I did not see the Barbie movie.
Barbie movie, there's a scene where they are really clowning on the toxic, like, I'm gonna push you around and I will, and it kind of clowns on that. And like years later, I was like, see, I was right. That is trash. That is trash music. So, I don't regret any of that stuff. I think that people who make decisions with the money in mind and as in regards to music, I think very rarely it actually really works. You have a lot of really terrible decisions made from kind of putting the money and the what's been done before, which is great now, because now you have AI that is just, it can only do things that were done before. So if you want something that's, this is where it gets messy. I'm starting to feel that.
So as you can see, if you're not fully centered, then what you're going to do is you're going to have those uneven walls. So now you're going to be battling that. It's kind of like, imagine you're building an instrumental and your drums are really choppy. And then you start to build on top of that foundation. You're kind of screwed from the jump. And that's kind of like what's happening here, where if you're not fully centered, you're going to be battling that for the rest of this process. But so you see this piece that I just made right here?
Yeah.
Sometimes what happens is say we get to the finish line, right? So say I'm at the final step right here, and all of a sudden things just go haywire. Or you accidentally reach over to grab something, then you bump the piece, or your hand bumps into it like that.
Yeah, I love that.
That's very similar to your story with Rustic Overtones, where you get so freaking close, and then all of a sudden you lose it right when, bases are loaded.
I was more afraid of making it than I was not making it.
So then what you do is you kind of squash it and you start over, right? I think that that's one of the things that's kind of synonymous with any art form, the music industry or pottery. is you need to learn by one of the philosophies that my college professor taught me is that you must learn through 1,000 pieces and not through one. And somebody like yourself, you have over 3,000 songs in your catalog that you've been a part of. So clearly you can see how those principles are synonymous, where you can't learn everything you're going to learn from that one song or that one record deal, that one band, because you've been in numerous projects. You've written thousands of songs for yourself and for other people. And I think that's partly why, like, I like to find a balance between both ceramics and music, is it really humbles you to realize that this is a process that's going to take decades and thousands of pieces in order to accomplish. Center Yourself is built on real conversations that spark curiosity and connection. If your brand shares that spirit, we would love to partner with you. Over the past 13 years, I built a highly engaged and trusted audience by consistently sharing free educational content to millions of people all over the world. That trust carries into the show. Any sponsor who joins us gets to become part of something real, grounded, and genuinely valued by the community. Sponsors can expect ad placements that feel intentionally woven into each conversation, along with the option for product spotlights, creative content, and long-term partnerships. So if you're interested in supporting the show and reaching a highly engaged and activated audience, connect with us through my website, natewinterstudios.com. Let's make something impactful together. Now let's get back into the show. I'm gonna restart. So is this kind of like representative of like where I was at when you first met me, where it was just kind of like a lumpy piece of shit?
Yeah.
And then, okay.
No, I mean, you always had great songs. I feel like to me, that's the most important thing. And, you know, when I'm talking about this integrity and all this stuff, I'm not talking about like, I want to do, you know, fusion or abstract jazz. I'm just talking about a good song and more importantly, timeless. I love to see the life of a song. And, you know, when that was the biggest takeaway from going to the Grammys and representing the song that, you know, I made with Aaron Neville, is that I literally went to a room that I was not allowed in with my past credentials. But my song was playing inside the room.
Wow. That's kind of poetic.
Yeah, my song was playing in there and they're like, yeah, you can't go in there. I was like, my song is in a place where I can't be. And to me, that was like, it just made me want to do that with every song. Every song, I was just like, I make these songs up in Maine and they can be lost in a black hole. Now, I want my songs to have a life of their own and go do things. And I want my songs to go on tour with big artists and have a tour bus and have a 18-wheeler carrying all the gear. You know what I mean? Like,
before we dive into this Grammy story, because I think there's going to be a lot of potency in that conversation, from loser of the year to Grammy winner from Maine. Before we go there, though, I would like to kind of wrap up a little bit of this Rustic Overtones conversation, because you experienced something that is actually not that unfamiliar to a lot of bands, where you had a very important member of Rustic Overtones pass away unexpectedly at a pretty young age, and of Dave Noyes. And Dave Noyes was, from my understanding, he was a trombonist, but that was not even remotely a quarter of his responsibility in the band, where he was a partner as a songwriter and as singing harmonies, and he helped with a lot of the logistics of Rustic Overtones. Can you talk about like that sudden death of somebody that not only probably meant a lot to you as a band member, but as a close friend, somebody you had spent decades with? What was that experience like, and how did that change the dynamic of the Rustic Overtones project?
well, I feel like I would like to start by like, whenever people die, everyone dies. You're not, I don't subscribe to this thing where like you're special because you died, or you're suddenly a wonderful person because you died. Everyone dies. It's literally one of the basics of life. Dave Noyes always was, always will be a great human being. He was a great friend. I broken down at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and had to call somebody to wake up out of bed and come get me. Dave Noyes would be that dude who'd do that. And he did handle a lot of the band day-to-day stuff, but creatively, what Dave Noyes was was I had like, you know, 4 chords and the truth, and I had this punk rock mentality, you know, and he would sophisticate that. So I would bring these songs to him. That's why you have these like songs that are like, it sounds like a garage band. It sounds like a band in their garage playing soul music. But it's kind of had this sophistication to it that he added. The writing process was always like, I would bring in, you know, a pig, and he would make it into some beautiful charcuterie. You know, he would just, you know, add orchestrations and show me like, there's more than that chord and what you're doing with that melody. There's more to that. And that's, I learned a lot about arranging from Dave.
Did he ever teach you to slow down a little bit? Like what you need to do
right
now?
Yeah, he was very
and rein
slow.
you in a little bit.
And he also taught me how to be humble, because he would do crazy things. Like I found out, like, not from him, that like he had worked with Mazzy Star. He had gone down and like arranged horns and like played on the last Whitney Houston album.
Wow.
Didn't tell anybody. Didn't brag about it. You know what I mean? Like, so
that's, you know, I had just interviewed Adam Ayan, and it's very similar with, like, if you met that guy casually on the street, you would have no idea what that man has done. And similar to you too, like I discover new things about the people you've worked with. And it's just like, it's incredible. And it's a sign of true masters of their craft, is because the craft matters more than the accolades. And it seemed like that was the case for Dave Noyes.
Right. Yeah, that's always been kind of the mentality of all the guys in Rustic, really. I mean, even off on our solo stuff, all these years in the music business, like none of us, I can't think of one person in our like circle of Rustic guys that has really sold out and tried to do something just like, you know, just for the money. We all love music, and I think that's a common thread in being from Maine. Is that you are a little bit extracted from the industry part of it.
Well, that, and also there's just a natural humility that comes with having to shovel 2 feet of snow for 6 months of the year.
Right.
I just think that that's a natural thing that humbles all of us, that we're all in this thing together. And you're not in that cesspool of LA or New York City. And I remember, like, we've kind of talked about both of our experiences of going to those places, and like we need to instantly recharge and reset as soon as we come back from there. And, you know, we can briefly touch upon this, but one of your songs that I had the privilege of singing on for your album was called Velvet Rope. And it's sort of talking about, like, you know, all the misfortunes of somebody like one of us going to a place like LA and not quite fitting in and tripping over the velvet rope and all this sort of stuff. And, I think that that's partly what makes us Maine artists a little bit more unique, like that piece you just made. Little off center. Sometimes you fall apart. Sometimes you try to put it back together. You're just going to keep on.
You can't do it, huh?
Yeah, it doesn't really work that way. You can try.
Yeah, I'll try.
Nothing's going to stop Dave Gutter.
I'm going to get this one. This is going to
salvageable.
Yeah, this is going to be a breakbeat.
So just dirty. As a quick detour from that, and I appreciate you talking candidly about losing a brother of yours like Dave, and was he a part of that experience of working with the famous and incredible alien himself, David Bowie, when you've worked with him for about a summer worth of songwriting in New York? Was Dave a part of that? And can you talk to me about that experience of working with somebody like David Bowie?
Yeah, Dave was part of that. Dave was part of the making of the record with Tony Visconti and David Bowie. But the funny thing was once Arista started talking about marketing it and taking pictures and doing videos and everything, Dave quit the band.
Wow.
Then as soon as we lost our deal, he joined again. But yeah, I mean, the other thing that I wanted to say about Dave Noyes is that, you know, the night that he passed away, he had paid our rent at our studio. He had given all the passwords and everything to our social media and everything to our new manager. He just did a bunch of these things that, like, you would think that maybe he knew that he was going to die. But it wasn't that. It was just he lived every moment as courteous and as thoughtful as though it could end. But with the Bowie stuff,
Yeah, let's
Bowie was
let's reset with that conversation, because like that must be one of the most just humbling and exciting things to work with somebody as revered as David Bowie. But what was interesting, one of the things that I heard you share in a conference talk was that David Bowie didn't show up with the costumes and the makeup. He showed up in like a flannel and blue jeans.
Yep.
And he was so down to earth. Can you talk to me about, like, was that like shocking to you? And what was your experience like working with somebody of that stature?
well, the late 90s and early 2000s in the music business was wild because you had all these prima donnas, all these bands that are shit now. I'm glad they all died. But they were prima donnas, and to meet someone like Bowie and be like, oh, this isn't about his ego. This isn't about him. We're collaborating and he is treating me as his equal. He's not treating me as less than him. And I realize that all that projection and stuff is like incredibly insecure people. And incredibly insecure people have a hard time being expressive. So he was just down to earth and his excitement for music. Bowie was just always excited. Like when we were talking about the song that we're working on, you know, he would be coming up with, oh, in the video we could do this, and oh, the art could be this, or what are you going to do for the stage show? And it became clear, and this picture formed of him. And I also later I'd gone to the museum to see like an exhibit on Bowie's life, and it confirmed that all these characters, Ziggy Stardust and all of it, oh my God, were planned and they were thought out from like a childlike
Wonder.
Yeah, it wasn't this like we're gonna make money and this is gonna be a big seller. It had this bigger thing that if it was gonna have an impact, that it would change the world, or it would change the way society looked at transgender or, you know, heterosexual people. And I feel like David Bowie has a lot of he's responsible for breaking down a lot of those walls. And you know, the whole glam rock scene was, and I thought it was also very poignant that you know, he was one of the first people who really took us to space in lyrics. Before that, you had, you know, like 50s songs that were silly about like a purple people eater or whatever, but he actually took you to space and made you feel like this loneliness, heartbreak of someone floating in space. And then when he passed away, he made a record that was like ushering us into understanding death in some way, or understanding our life, which is kind of the same thing.
Did that respect that he honored you and your band, was that a breakthrough moment where you, like I've arrived moment in a way of being able to work with somebody of that stature and gain somebody like his respect?
Yeah, I mean, every musician that I know, even some on big levels, even people who have written songs with Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar, there are days when they wake up and they're like, should I just go like work in the warehouse at Walmart so I can, you know, have some sort of like to quell the chaos a little bit of the music industry, quell the I don't know where my next paycheck's coming from. And everyone has that thought. But what Bowie did to me was like, I wake up in the morning now, this morning, and I say to myself, I am a musician. I was put on this earth to make music. And I can confidently say that because Bowie didn't work with anybody. He turned down Coldplay the same year that we worked with him.
Wow.
He turned down so many artists that were trying to work with him, and the handful that he did work with, we're among those ranks. John Lennon, Queen, you know, like so it was really, it made me realize that it's really just your frame of mind and your perspective as to who you are. If you're this otherworldly thing that you've imagined in your head, or if you're just insignificant and you're not good enough or whatever. So that leap there, where your imagination can kind of be what um, keeps you going.
Can you break down the story that you mentioned to me about? Remind me, what
Not
was it?
while doing this.
What was his last project? Was it Black Star?
Yeah.
And okay, so you had told me, remind me of the details because they're a little fuzzy, but somebody that was important to David Bowie had communicated to you that in the making of that project and, you know, in his, whether it's his journals or final words, it said something to the effect of that Dave Gutter was one of his last hopes, I guess, of being an American songwriter or music or songwriting in general. Can you kind of explain that story?
Yeah, his childhood friend who had come to the studio, Paul Verna, who worked at Billboard magazine. It was a really weird situation because this band, Tony Visconti had a band that was out on the road playing Bowie songs, and they played at Aura in town, and he put me on the guest list. I went by and I talked to him and met a bunch of like other players that had played with Bowie over the years, and that was really cool. And I said to Tony Visconti, and Paul Verna was there as well, I said, I would really like to connect with Bowie again. My writing's gotten better. I would love to reconnect with him on doing another collaboration. And they both had this look that was like, at first I thought it was like, yeah, that's never going to happen. Like, you really messed it up last time or something. And I had that, like, why did they give me that look? And I actually got word from Paul 10 hours before the world knew that David Bowie was dead.
Wow.
That David Bowie died.
So he was like on his deathbed basically when you had that conversation?
Yeah, well, the album Black Star was very premeditated. He knew that he was dying, and he wanted to make a record about it. And those close to him, Visconti obviously knew because he produced the record. But he told me, Paul Verna took me to lunch the next day, the day that I found out Bowie died. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm being taken to lunch by Bowie's childhood friend who has been with him the whole way because he was in the music industry at Billboard. And he was like, just so you know that, like, the way Bowie talked of you when he was working with you was that you were one of the great hopes. You were one of like the things that he looked forward to, that he thought the music industry might be okay. And I was like, well, I haven't really done him justice successfully wise, but I can keep doing this.
What is that like? How does that make you feel to have somebody that you've probably looked up to in your career to also have the shoe on the other foot, and he's looking up to you and respecting your craft?
Well, for me, it's really about my aunt, you know, like the aunt Irene or whoever. We all have this aunt. Or
we all have an aunt Irene.
Yeah, you know, Thanksgiving's coming up, holidays are coming up, and all us musicians are going to have to face our aunt at some point, and they're going to be like, oh, how's it going? You know? How's the music business? How's your little
thing going?
Yeah, exactly. So what David Bowie gave me is like, oh, every Thanksgiving, fuck you, Aunt Irene. Fuck you, whoever. Because, you know, it's really a tough industry. And
yeah.
But it's an industry that everyone would kill to be in. And that's why, like, oh my God. I found a tougher industry.
Pottery?
Yeah, the pottery industry. I thought the music industry was tough. The pottery industry is way harder.
Perhaps this is the piece.
Oh, maybe we just cook that?
Maybe we just cook this. Set it off to the side and we might do something with it.
I want to put all these together.
Any final,
like
any final, I guess, things to touch upon with regards to David Bowie and his impact on you as a songwriter? Or maybe one takeaway in a couple sentences of like something that you learned from him that you still apply to your craft to this day.
I guess it was just to be cool.
But without trying to be cool.
Not be cool like from the in out, but just being cool to other people.
I see. So not having the appearance of being cool by wearing a leather jacket, but being cool in terms of personality and respecting your peers.
You have to understand, this was the all-time high of rock stars being rock stars. Mm-hmm. This is the all-time high of like them, dissing their fans straight up and just being like, I am as a human, I'm up here and you're down here.
Mhm.
And it's like, wow, like that people would think that because you have one hit in the 90s or something, but a lot of bands were like that. And a lot of bands were like super crappy. And, he wasn't. He was in love with his wife and he loved music and he loved the saxophone. And he loved jokes. And he would send me like early internet viral videos. The video, it looks a little bit like this. It was like there was a zookeeper cleaning an elephant's cage. And then
Dry that off before you throw that on there, by the way.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so the elephant sits down on the man cleaning the cage, and now the man is inside the elephant's vagina. David Bowie sent me that video, and he would send me these photos randomly, which is funny. I bring up the aunt thing because he would send me like a picture of like a hideously scary woman with like no teeth, like completely naked, and just, not to body shame anyone, but these were ugly women he was sending me. And he'd be like, my Aunt Meg says hi. And I'd be like, what is the meaning of this?
That's beautiful. Actually, do you want a little assistance first? Or are you happy to keep okay.
I'm learning.
Okay.
This is actually how I learned music. But by trial and error, by looking at my heroes and seeing what they're doing.
Well, it's an honor that you would consider me.
So maybe I'll come up with some new form of pottery by exploration.
All right. So you briefly touched upon this earlier, but talk to me about the transition of your crash out song, Loser of the Year, to then shortly after winning the 2023 Grammy Award with Aaron Neville.
Yeah, so I made this song kind of like a snarky song. I saw this trophy that was somewhere. I think it was at like a record store, but it was like a trophy that said Loser of the Year on it. And I was like, that's hilarious. So I made this song just, about kind of owning your spot in music, whatever it may be, or what are the reasons for this why have thou forsaken me kind of thing, I go through and talk about maybe it's in my blood, maybe it's my parents' fault, maybe God just doesn't like me. But I made this song called Loser of the Year about you're accepting an award to be at the bottom. And the irony of that was the same year, a few months later, I would win a Grammy.
I know whenever you perform that song now, you say, this song did not age well. So can you, it took you just shy of 30 years without age shaming you to win your first Grammy. 3,000 songs to get your one Grammy. What is that like? What does that feel like? Did you feel like, was that an I've arrived moment as well for you? Did it feel validating? And I guess how has that informed you in your writing process today?
Well, the thing with that song was it had been made 8 years before. And it had been made when I had...
What song? The one you did with Aaron?
Stomping Ground, yeah. And it won that year because it was part of a soundtrack. But I had spent, pretty much the same time with Aaron as I had with David Bowie, but for the purpose of making an album about his life. Aaron Neville is very known for one of the last living soul legends, and one of my best friends, by the way. He messaged me every week. He asks how my daughter's doing in college. He sends me videos. I send him stuff. We have a really great relationship, and he's like my other granddad. But going into that, writing an album about his life, I went into some of the stuff he had written, and the more I wrote, the more intimate these letters would get. That he would want to write about, or he showed me like letters he gave to his wife, and wanted me to write a song about their relationship.
Wow. Which
to me was like, okay, we've hit a spot where you really trust me to communicate what you're saying. So I was glad mostly that such a cool thing that we had made, which I thought kind of went under the radar, was now getting its just desserts.
That's got to be a lesson for really any musician to realize that it took 8 years from the creation of the song to then end up in a live performance format, right? Because it was like a live rendition of that song for a soundtrack.
Yep.
And then, so 8 years later after the creation and release of this song, you then win a Grammy for it.
Yeah, and to me, the best thing about that was that it came at a time when my daughter was a senior in high school, and it got to make her cool and it got to make her feel special, but also she got to see.
Because she went with you, right? Didn't you? You had a promise to her at a very young age that, like, even though like you have your wife and you have your parents, you were like, I'm taking my
idle
girl.
promise. And idle promise when she was like 4 or 5. She was like, you make music too, Papa. When you go to the Grammys, can I go? And I'm like, yeah, sure. It was totally like, oh, kids say the darndest things. And then,
actually, so we just started working on our album that we did together, Stories Volume 1. And we had just cracked into the first song right before you had won your Grammy. And I was afraid I was never going to hear from you again. I thought you were going to go full Hollywood.
Well, you did hear from me because I called you. I called you and I was like, bro, I got to go to the Grammys. Yeah. I need a tuxedo. I need all this stuff. And you're going to have to pay me in advance for your album.
Which I remember. I was like, I gave you my last money that I had in my account. And I was like, all right, buddy.
You were one of the people that helped me get there. So I appreciate that. And I'll never forget you for that. But just teaching my daughter, being the child of a musician. Musicians are very narcissistic. It's very sacrificing for not just you, but for your whole family.
Sure.
And so, to kind of show her, like, this is what happens when you don't give up. Plenty of things will come fast. Plenty of things will be great news. This worked out just the way I wanted it. But more likely, you're going to have to stick some shit out, and you're going to have to believe in yourself when no one else does. So to me, that was, I spent a ton of money to go to the Grammys. Grammy was a piece of paper. Gold record is a gold flake. I mean, nothing is real. So really, you have to take what you can from these experiences because there's actually no real value to winning a Grammy.
Center Yourself is built on real conversations that spark curiosity and connection. If your brand shares that spirit, we would love to partner with you. Over the past 13 years, I built a highly engaged and trusted audience by consistently sharing free educational content to millions of people all over the world. That trust carries into the show. Any sponsor who joins us gets to become part of something real, grounded, and genuinely valued by the community. Sponsors can expect ad placements that feel intentionally woven into each conversation, along with the option for product spotlights, creative content, and long-term partnerships. So if you're interested in supporting the show and reaching a highly engaged and activated audience, connect with us through my website, natewinterstudios.com. Let's make something impactful together. Now let's get back into the show.
So winning a Grammy, because what's interesting is like you win the most prestigious award in the landscape of music and songwriting, yet the next follow-up project that you write is the music industry's trying to kill me.
Right.
And one of the songs that you have is referencing gold records aren't gold and a deal isn't a deal. So can you talk to me about like how winning the most prestigious award in the world informed you in almost like from a comedic self-deprecating kind of way, and instead of like being full of yourself and being like, wow, I made it to the top of the heap, you instead decide to take a whole different approach. So talk me through that.
Well, you have to, I had talked about the mediums in which music had changed, from cassettes, vinyls to iPods, all that stuff. Wait, I take this off and then I give it to him, right? Confidently.
You don't have to spin the wheel while you're doing it, or you can.
I thought you said
all right, you like to live on the edge. That's fine. Well, first off, let's congratulate your first successful piece on your own.
Well, yeah, I went humble. I was like, I'm going to make an ashtray.
Our trusty assistant. Thank you, Lucas.
So it was like every single time I would kind of get a foothold on the industry or my business, something would change.
Yeah.
So you've just printed, you've got 12,000 CDs in a warehouse to sell to people.
And
As an
1,000 have
independent-
sold or 500.
And now
Yeah.
we're not selling CDs anymore.
No, we can't even sell 100, even if
Okay.
you're the biggest artist in your state.
Well, right. But I'm just saying, like, the world was like, okay, we're changing that now. It's like,
Sure.
okay, so it always felt like, what are they throwing at me? And for every obstacle that's thrown at you is a little glimmer of hope. And so the music industry is trying to kill me is about that worm on that hook, that hope.
The
that-
dangled carrot, right?
Right. Like I could quit music today. I could say I'm never playing music again. In the next 6 months, I'm going to get a call. It's going to be like, hey,
Sure.
you want to co-write with someone who knows a friend of Harry Styles or, whatever.
Right.
It's always something like that. And you're like, oh, geez, like I remember
Yeah.
you had went to Jamaica and you were like, yeah, dude, I hung out with Rihanna's backup dancer. And I'm just like, those are the things. Those are the things. It's like a little bit of hope that it's actually not going to
That's
do
really
anything
nothing
for
at
you.
all. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Ah.
Well, and what's cool too is like you've, as we've talked about, you've been responsible for having over 3,000 songs in your catalog, and some of those have been like really, really esteemed artists and people that are household names. But with this project, you did work with some heavy hitters from a production standpoint, but a lot of the people you had on this record were like local cats, like me and Matt Giard and Ben's Been Dead and these people. Can you talk to me about how, like, what's the difference between collaborating with, the David Bowies to people like us?
I have a palpable love for music. I have a belief, and I've not lost faith through all this stuff. And so I'm excited about young artists. I'm excited about music. I want to help somebody that maybe has something that I don't. Shine and do their thing and give them the thing that Bowie gave me, like to believe in yourself, to wake up and be like, I'm a songwriter.
Despite how many streams you have or how much money you have.
Well, not even that stuff, just because you wrote a song and
Sure.
because you know it's good and I know it's good. And, this guy told me that I know what's up, and I'm going to tell you, that you know what's up and make you believe in yourself, because that honestly is the thing that destroys music around here. I'll know like the best, musician that I ever play with, anywhere, the national stage, wherever, and they work at Applebee's because they can't afford to be a musician.
Let me ask you though, so is the music industry just trying to kill you today, or has it always been designed to kill you?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of ways that it's trying to kill me. First of all, you look up in a dictionary rock star. What does that person look like to you, Nate?
What does it look like to me?
you look
Not
at
the
a
proverbial you? Like,
He's got a leather jacket, maybe.
yeah, I think that like part of it is like a larger than life thing. You have an appearance of fame and success, whether that's true or not. You've got, the cars and the jewelry
All right.
and the
So that
accolades.
establishes that the music industry has actually created the egomaniac. It's their pressure, but it also sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's
Sure.
a big theme of the record. Is like this expectation that you are as rock star as the next person, or I don't know. It just throws a lot at you, and it doesn't it doesn't kill you. It's not trying to kill you. It's just giving you all the tools to kill yourself.
Interesting.
But
so what are the measures you need to take to fight back?
I've been,
Especially as an independent artist and not necessarily like or I guess perhaps in both situation as a major label artist, as an independent artist, what are the antidotes to this industry that's trying to kill you?
well, I think that maybe the antidote to it is being, true to what you do. And if you aren't willing to make sacrifices, then you shouldn't be a musician. If you're not willing to get your ego extremely devastated, don't be a musician. Find something else to do. But if you love music, just make music for the love of that music. And I think, I don't know what I'm saying. I can't concentrate and do this at the same time. I'm going to make...
You know what your big problem is you're not bracing your elbows. That's like rule number one. Brace those elbows down into your hips and you're not going to be all locked around or moving around.
No, but I guess, I don't know if there is. The music industry is a tough place.
Sure.
I don't know if there is a solution for that. I've been, spending my time. The only good thing that the Grammy did also give me is like maybe some sort of respect and to get in some rooms with some people of influence. Sure. I did lobby to Congress this year and helped get a couple like really big bills against StubHub and Live Nation. So, that's part of what I've been doing is using my voice to try to make it so maybe it's not like this in the future, like all this toxic behavior in the past in the music industry and all the mistreatment. If there's any good thing the internet can provide, it's the voices of people being like, we're not going to stand for this.
Did winning the Grammy for you change your relationship with writing songs, or did it I remember one time you had said, sort of tongue-in-cheek, jokingly, that like it's only downhill from here, that the only thing you have to look forward to is now winning that Grammy. Now the expectation for every project is to win. But I know you probably don't genuinely mean that, but how has that win altered your relationship with writing songs? Or has it?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't really. Every once in a while, I'll use it to win an argument in the studio.
Well, I did win a Grammy.
Yeah, I'll be like, well, what about this though? So I saw a documentary on Netflix about like, I don't even know what it's called, but it was about people that won the Olympics and now were losers. And it was incredibly poignant because I was like, oh, well, just because you win this thing of no value, and I hate that I keep saying that, but it is really true. And I think you and I both know that there's also a lot of favoritism and that kind of stuff.
A lot of lobbying for sure.
A lot of lobbying. Yeah. But yeah, I just make more songs. I just it inspired me that maybe they can go on and do something. That's like the tip of the iceberg. But once you get in those conversations and those rooms, your song can live a bigger life, and that's what we should all hope for. Is that a song is a child. When we make it together, we choose as the parents of that song what is going to be best for the song, not what's going to be best for our wallets. It's going to be what's best for the song. And then you raise a nice, good song, and they might have a chance in the world.
One of the things when we were working on our record together, Stories Volume 1, we had this sort of agreement from the very beginning that the best idea wins. And sometimes it's mine, sometimes it's yours, sometimes it's our engineers, sometimes it's the session musician that we hired for the day. That's something that I've taken away and learned a lot from you, is that despite your decades of experience over me, you really allowed me to have my ideas shine through if you thought, in fact, it was better than the idea that you would come up with. And I think that it really validated me at a time where, when we were working on this project, we were working on material that I had started. It was some of the first songs I had ever written, and some of the ideas were virtually untouched. And then some other ideas you would contribute a bridge or rewrite a couple parts of a chorus. But it was one of the most validating experiences to have an idol that I looked up to literally in my younger years to be able to now be collaborators. And that was a really validating and special experience for me.
Well, when I work with other artists, I mean, I do find, as I'm also a producer as well as a writer, but if you really encourage someone and you get that idea out of them, they've created it. It's not because they've paid you money, they hired a songwriter. That towel didn't really do it. It's because you've allowed them to come up with the idea for the song. And then when they perform that line of the song that you've got them all amped up about that they wrote, they sing it like they're excited. So.
And I mean, you've also like empowered me too, because I think my Achilles heel with songwriting was bridges. And,
right.
In terms of, I guess, a brief summation of what a bridge is it's like, it's kind of taking you somewhere and asking a new question that you can resolve or answer with the last chorus or outro or whatever you want to do with song structure. But maybe a year or two after we had worked on that record, I came back and showed you a few new songs that I was working on. You're like, dude, you're like the bridge king now. And that was like super cool to like feel like I went from a place where I didn't even know where to start with writing bridges. Cause I had come from a background of just working on loops with looper pedals and working in sessions like Pro Tools where you just kind of make a part and copy and paste it. So I was unfamiliar with how do I do a key change? How do I take this and give a whole new vibe for this little 15, 30-second window of a song? That was also another validating thing that I had learned from you, was just how to like take this in somewhere totally unique of a direction, and gave me the confidence to kind of empower me to do that on my own.
I also think it's just sitting in a room having a conversation about the lyrics and about the song is better than your internal dialogue that you have, which is shrouded in self-doubt and preconceived whatever. Bro, I mean, you can write a song, but you suck at pottery, poetry.
It's the same thing.
This is what I got here. But no, I think that a lot of that, we have to balance it somewhere between being an egomaniac and then just having a normal self-esteem about music. You know what I mean? Believing in yourself.
Dude, I feel like the most brilliant person, and then 5 minutes later I can feel like a total piece of shit. Like that's part of the beauty of being an artist, is like you can just think you're on top of the world and very quickly after that be humbled in no time. So
yeah, and all those are important. Every time someone tells you no, every time a door closes or whatever, those are important too. I mean, loser of the year is a snarky, like, middle finger to everyone who didn't believe in me. You know what I mean? And sometimes that, I mean, let's be honest, that's way more motivating. If someone's like, bro, you suck. You can't make a pot, like you said to me before this.
True.
And then I was like, defiantly, you know what? I'm going to work even harder to do this because you said I couldn't do it. So you can always get inspiration. I get more inspiration from the people that doubt me than the people that build me up.
So this show is called Center Yourself. And as you can maybe presume, this is not too far away from the songwriting process, and the fact that you must be in a certain state of mind, I guess, when you're writing a song. And so what do you do to get the best version of yourself from a creative standpoint? What do you do to find center?
You're really going to ask me this question?
I am.
Marijuana and coffee.
Marijuana and coffee.
You knew the answer. No, you know, I absorb everything around me.
You had said that everything's a lyric. Like if you're receptive to like even a conversation had by two people at a coffee shop, that everything can be a lyric.
Oh, it is. It is 100%. And once you start looking at the world like that, once I, talk to other people about like, okay, like I love it when an insignificant, not that anyone is insignificant, but someone that's not part of the process is in the room and they say something. Because it usually takes them a lot to pipe in, but it's usually very sound advice if it just comes from a layman listening to it. But
with that being said, with your 3,000 songs you've written in 30 years, do you think you have another 3,000 left, or are you getting close to?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. This 3,000 number, this was tallied like 3 years ago.
So you're probably at
and I've been making 5 songs a week since then. So,
but
we might be already.
Do you
up
think
there.
the well's ever going to run dry?
No, I don't, because of the possibilities and the exploration. For me, I think I'll always have my cognitive abilities as I get older, because I'm constantly, it's a game, it's a puzzle you're trying to figure out. And I love that part about it. And, like, talk about being perceptive to songs all around you. Everything that's said, everything that's felt can be a lyric or be, something to jot down. And once you start doing that, you start writing down things. I even eavesdrop on people's conversations. And I like, oh, you and your wife are arguing? Well, now it's my song. But I think that being perceptive to everything around you, being perceptive to the conditions, is also.
Well, Dave Gutter.
Yes, that is
Cut
me.
your piece. Let's stop the wheel and cut the piece, and we'll cheers and end on that.
All right, I think this is good.
But you had 2 successful pieces today on your own.
They get all drippy though. I gotta dry them off. Hold
Yeah,
on.
let's get that sponge, get some excess water out of there. Any closing remarks or statements or, I don't know, any advice you'd give to a young aspiring independent artist?
Don't make music unless you love music. If you love money, don't make music. If you love to, be feigned upon by fans or whatever, don't make music. Only make music if when you hear a song, you like feel it. You know what I mean? Like, and don't care, like, don't be precious with your art. I told someone the other day, like, if I make one pot this year, I'm going to be judged on this one pot. But if I make 30 pots, I can show someone all these pots and be judged upon all of them, all the different nuances of each one. So like, don't be precious with your art. Doesn't matter if people like it. It doesn't matter if you like it. If it comes out of you, if you've expressed it somehow, just see how it turns out,
Well, on that note, take off your piece.
You make it sound so easy.
You got it, bud.
I don't have fingernails. I'm nervous.
Uh-oh.
No, it's stuck
grab
for
this
good.
tool right here.
Yeah, I lost
Here.
that tool.
No, I know.
We
Here you
don't
go.
have that anymore.
Here. You can maybe drive a wedge under there.
Neck.
You got this, bud.
I'm gonna break your tool.
There
Okay,
we
here we
go.
go. We got it up. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for centering yourself with me.
I don't like the cheers against you. That's,
Well, how about this?
oh,
All right, my friend, on that
couldn't-
note, Dave, shake my dirty hand.
hell yeah.
Love you,
Thank
buddy. Thank
Love
you.
you too.
Thank you for centering yourself with us today. If you found value in this conversation, please like, share, and subscribe so we can continue growing this community together. Until next time, Pottery people, stay centered and stay inspired. See you next time.